Chris Foy sends social media into meltdown after his commentary gaffe during Man City TMS Champions League defeat against Liverpool. Liverpool may have secured their place in the Champions League semi-final, but it was a certain Premier League referee that sent social media into meltdown. With Manchester City leading 1-0 at the Etihad, Leroy Sane had a goal controversially ruled out for offside. Enter Chris Foy. Chris Foy, the goal should have #cityvlfkpic.twitter.com/FSG1L9OKU citizens fans were fuming when Sane and #X27 strike was chalked off, after the ball bounced off Reds ace James Milner before he volleyed in from close range. The incident incensed City boss Pep Guardiola, who was sent to the stands for the second half after he shouted at Italian referee Antonio Miguel Ntulahitz. And when discussing the disallowed strike on BT Sport, Foy stated the goal should, before correcting himself, only to say the wrong phrase yet again. The 55-year-old and #X27 comments left Twitter in stitches, with many finding his gaffe hilarious. Liverpool edged to 2-1 victory at the Etihad to seal a 5-1 aggregate win to book their place in the Champions League semi-finals for the first time in 10 years. Second-half goals from Mohamed Salah and Roberto Firmino cancelled out Gabriel Jesus and #X27, early opener. The Reds could face Roma in the last four after the Serie A knocked out Barcelona after winning 3-0 to advance through on away goals. Here are some of the best tweets of fans discussing Foy and #X27 gaffe. The goal should. Let me rephrase that. Can I? No, actually, I and number 39 LL just repeat it. The goal should. #Champions League #MCLive #should.twitter.com/3nkweb the goal should I should say, Chris Foy 2018 pic.twitter.com/ICNF0xxCJG Well done Chris Foy. I too thought that goal should the goal should, Chris Foy for BT Sport. No, that and number 39 S not a typo. Thanks to Chris Foy for confirming twice the goal should. Thanks for that expert insight, Chris. The goal definitely should. A Chris Foy the Z should. Thanks Chris Foy, you had one job. I'm still laughing at the goal should. TM. The goal stood at MV should. I mean, it stood at MV shoulda. Chris Foy. This game and number 39 S done. Get Chris Foy back on and see what other words he can and number 39 T say. #MCLive should the goal should. He actually said the goal should. Sorry, the goal should. I should say I was in knots. The correction to should was incredible. If you and number 39 wondering why there and number 39 S no English referees at the World Cup, there and number 39 S no finer example than Chris Foy needing 94 replays to work out that Sane was onside. He even had a 15-minute break to mull it over and still cooled and number 39 T get his head around it. Chris Foy. Proof that there are people out there making a living for doing absolutely naff all. Thanks Chris Foy. The goal should. Sorry, should. There you have it ladies and gentlemen, clarification from BT Sparta TMS finest official. Half an hour after it happened, in fumbled English. So glad we can rely on these experts. Sport football #MCLive.